One of the biggest mistakes I see so many podcasters make is giving up on the podcast before it's actually had a shot to be successful. This week's guest, Laura Camacho, is a perfect example of just how successful a podcast can be when you actually give it a shot. So she almost quit her podcast after years of slow growth, but then she told herself she would give it one last year. She brought in an expert to help her and 8 times her podcast downloads. Now she's ranked number 2 in her category, has over 400 podcast episodes under her belt, and her podcast is finally bringing her the clients she always dreamed of. So if you've ever wondered whether your show is worth investing in, I think that this episode is really going to inspire you to take the leap. So sit back and enjoy this episode with communications and executive presence coach, Laura Camacho. Welcome to the Podcast Cafe, where we're serving up everything you need to know about podcasting, from tips, stories, and strategies for podcasters from podcasters. I'm your host, Haley Hayhurst, the founder of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency helping business owners, creatives, and thought leaders launch and grow their shows. Whether you're just starting out or want to take your podcast to the next level, this is the place for you. Each week, we'll dive into practical tips, actionable strategies, and of course, stories from other podcasters so that you can build up a podcast that you love and that works for your business. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's get started. Welcome to the Podcast Cafe. Hey, Laura, thank you so much for joining me in the Podcast Cafe.
Thank you, Haley. I'm excited to be here. I usually am talking to people in the business context, like the corporate world, and this is exciting for me to talk about the podcasting world.
Yes, I'm really excited for you to share all of your information with us today. But before we get started, I have to know, what is your go-to coffee order?
Cappuccino with extra espresso. That's what I like. So you can.
Yeah. Okay. I love
What about
that.
you? What about you?
I usually like just a latte. I get my coffee from Nespresso, like the machines.
Yeah, same.
And so they have a location here in Seattle that you get to go and try the coffees and like buy them all.
No way.
I spent $180 there the other day.
Oh,
but
my
you know
gosh.
what? It'll save me money in the long run. But
Yeah,
they just got pistachio flavors, and it's really good. So that's what I was having this morning.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, I have to look that up. I love pistachio. So.
Oh my gosh, me too. It's so good. Well, I'm excited to get into your podcast. So Laura, why don't you start off with telling us about who you are and what your podcast is about?
Well, thank you, Haley. I am a communication executive presence coach today, but I am a nerd at heart. And, I'd never planned to be any kind of coach whatsoever. I have a very interesting and eclectic background. I've lived in several countries. I speak several languages, but I am an introvert, and the skills that those of you who are introverts, I'm betting that you were a good student. I don't know if you were a good student, Haley, because you're not an introvert, but you don't have to say. But when in school, we're taught, it's not just taught, it's ingrained in us, do the work, turn it in on time, do what the teacher asks, and you get an A. And it's great, right? That's why I have a master's and a PhD, because in school, I am super successful. But that doesn't translate directly to business success, whether you're in corporate or you have your own business. So, Haley, in 2009, I opened my shop I had been in the university almost 10 years, had just gotten my PhD, and I was going to solve the world's problems of bad communication at work. But it turns out, just saying to someone, oh, I teach communication skills, it's not compelling. It's kind of boring. It's like kind of along there with, selling maybe life insurance or being an IRS agent. I had to learn, it's not just it's not a rational thing. You have to connect with people. And that's true whether you work, for American Express or you have your own podcast. You have to connect with people, but that doesn't come natural to all of us. So anyway, now I teach, high performing introverts, usually around director level in a company, and some business owners as well, like those special skills about talking about yourself without sounding like an egomaniac, and how to connect with people.
I love that. So your podcast, Speak Up, what made you decide to start, having episodes on there? Like, what made you start that?
Well, Haley, that we have to go back. I come from the middle ages of podcasting. So back in the day when I first started, it was just to give. I had a blog, and so I would read my blog and record that, and, embed that SoundCloud recording, and then that became the podcast because I was, at the time, I guess podcasting was big, but nothing like it is today.
Yeah. What year was this? That
was 2018. Okay. So
yeah.
That was before COVID. And it actually may have been 2017. And so I started with that. So I got, used to recording my voice and editing it. And then COVID hit, and I started interviewing my friends. I would be like, Haley, will you be on my podcast? And we're going to talk about communication. And I would ask them these questions about it. And then I don't know how this happened. It was probably a God thing. But these PR agencies from New York and Seattle, like these big PR agencies, started sending me these amazing guests to interview. Cool. And so it just kind of blew up from there. But then, so I had this like massive growth, 2020 to say 2023. And then it kind of leveled off, and then kind of went down in 2023, early 2024. So I invested in some help, a consultant based in the UK. I had asked 2 podcast consulting companies, not yours, for help, like I would like to hire you kind of email, and did not even get an answer, Haley. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So this other guy from UK, he had been pursuing me. So I'm like, okay. And I did hire them, and they helped me kind of reboot it in last year. We started work in February, and basically it's been a year in the rebooted version. And I learned a lot that I didn't know, because I was just, going off of what I heard from other people and other successful podcasts. But that doesn't, just because, James Altucher is my all-time favorite, and I love and adore him. He has inspired me so much. But just because the model that he uses works for him, doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody, is my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And I work with a lot of different businesses and different industries. And so no 2 strategies look alike for growth. And I think that's, So I also do like podcast review series where I pull these big podcasts. I'm like, here's what they're doing. Here's maybe how you could do it. But it can't be a copy and paste,
Right.
And so I really appreciate you bringing that up. What made you want to reboot it? Like, did you have new plans for the podcast? Did you want to use it more for business growth? Like, what strategy shifts did you want to see with working with a consultant?
Yes. Well, I was too ignorant to even answer that question. But this was the deal. My coaching practice was good. And I wanted to diversify. So I had thought about, this is in summer of 2023. The podcast is just kind of languishing. I mean, it's not like it's nobody's listening, but I'm kind of devoid of, I don't know what to do. So it's just there. And I decide, I learned about this business model where you set up a shop to rent mailboxes and, like a packaging, like a pack of mail. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. But I really went almost to the line, and I got to the point of like signing away my children's inheritance. And I was like, it's just something didn't feel right about it. And a friend of mine who's a very savvy businesswoman, she said, Laura, your podcast is good. You have a solid audience. Why don't you invest in that? So that was like, ding, 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 ding. Oh, you can invest in a podcast. You can get help. You don't have to do it all by yourself. And so that's how it's the thing is, Haley, that those of us that have, businesses doing other things, and we use a podcast as like a way to reach out to the world. Yep. We don't know. I mean, I guess some people know. Maybe I'm like the most ignorant of all in podcasting. But I didn't. I mean, there was just I had no idea how much I didn't know. To be quite frank.
Yeah. I mean, you never know what you don't know, and so that's why I created Podcast Cafe, so other podcasters can hear what other podcasters are doing. That's really why this is here and why we're having this conversation.
Right.
To help other people. And so I love everything you just shared. You're also ranked number 2 for the top communication podcast, ranked by FeedSpot. When did that happen, and kind of how did you do that?
Oh, Haley, that's such a funny story. Well, time around 2019, maybe, I got ranked number 9. And Haley, you would have thought I had won 7 Academy Awards. I was like, somebody is ranking me. Little old me in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm on somebody's record. I was just like, whoa, I'm number 9 in this category. And then, I started checking, and eventually I was like number 5, and then I was number 3, and then number 1 is this guy. Number 1, I don't know how I'm going to crush him, but he's at Stanford University, and so he's got Stanford University behind him, and all those resources. But I've also some other ranker company has put me number 10 for soft skills, and I don't know, another one. So I don't know how I got that.
Well, hard work and 400 episodes, know, like
that does no, but hey, I think that one of the main things is to know who you're talking to, which I have always done, because my clients and my audience, like my clients are a subset of my audience. So I always know the problems that they have, because I'm coaching them. And I've been, after you coach a few thousand people on this same high-performing, highly conscientious introverts who feel overlooked or not prepared for a promotion, they're just in that conundrum. I know how to solve that problem, and I know what they're thinking. And so that I think is the why it's been successful. The trick to go to 400 plus episodes is that you have to like make it interesting and kind of say the very similar thing in a different way week after week, right? Yeah. But that's an awesome exercise in creativity. And, I can pull things from, negotiations going on with the tariffs, or I can pull things from a sports figure. I can pull things from the news. I can pull things from my clients, but it's always making it fresh and just not boring. You cannot be boring.
That was going to be my next question too, of how, as, an introvert, thinking of how you prepare for episodes. There's a lot of different ways that, someone could sit down for an interview and just say, okay, tell me everything about your life, and kind of just no questions. Or a solo episode, just sit down and press record and see what happens. Or there's, more planning. So what approach do you have to recording and structuring the episodes?
So, Haley, we can tell you're not an introvert. We plan everything. We are the planners of the world. Yes. So we plan. And the thing with okay, so first of all, for everybody, I know you know this, everybody, like, just because Joe Rogan and James Altucher and all these stars leverage the interview format doesn't mean that's the only format there is. I currently do 3 episodes a week. I do a short, like, I didn't even know there was such thing as a 10-minute podcast episode. And that people love it. I didn't even know it existed. And I was like, who would listen to a podcast for 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 7 minutes? But if it's good and you're going to the grocery store, which is 15 minutes away, you will listen to a short episode. So I have 2 short ones and 1 half-hour interview every week. So my process is, with guests, as you know, you only want to interview very interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very honored to be in that category for you today. But you have to kind of know your audience. I think that's the foundation. What are they struggling with? Like, my audience is not warm and fuzzy, Haley. They're super smart. They're way smarter than I am, a lot of them, maybe most of them. And so they don't want long stories. They don't want the history of the thing. They want actionable items.
Yeah.
So I deliver that. But, that would also be boring if I just said, well, stand up straight every time you give a presentation. I mean, that's what your mom has been telling you your whole life, right? But if I say, you know what, I've talked to, almost all the top body language experts in the world, and every time I talk to them, I say, what is the number one body language tip that actually registers in your bank account as far as getting higher compensation? And they 100% say posture. Well, then I know that, hey, it is posture. Posture is important, not only when you're sitting and when you're standing, and gestures with your hand, all those things. There's a lot of details. So how do I prepare? So I think about really, I did the guest episodes and the individual episodes are two different processes. With the guests, the main thing is finding interesting people, because I don't want to be talking to myself every week. Like, that would not be very interesting. So I try to find people who are leaders or have been leaders, who have started companies, not just executive coaches. And then with the mini episodes, it's really, I'm feeding off of what I heard a client say. Oh yeah. And it's like just before we got on this, I recorded a 12-minute episode on the problem of being too blunt, because it turns out in the last 10 days, like 7 people have shared, oh, people are saying that I'm too blunt. And I have my own philosophy of that. And I'm sure I've dealt with it under other words before, but I just wrote down, people say you're being too blunt. This is what they mean. Being blunt is actually good, because it means that you're honest and can be trusted, but you're missing this context. So I use ChatGPT, Grok. I give a little, I want to do an episode that covers this point, and it gives me, its stuff, and I go back and I scream at it and tell it to do better. This is ridiculous. Don't be so lazy. And eventually I get something, and then I don't read it, but I refer to it. And I always try to give, 3 tips or 4 or 1, and keep it 7 to 12 minutes.
I love that. And I like how you pull, ideas from different places, not just, your own past, but also your client stories and, like you said, the news. So yeah, I think for anyone who's wondering, how could I ever put out 3 episodes a week? That's how you get inspiration.
Right. I mean, it depends on what your day job is. Like, what is your job?
Right.
Do most of your clients have a business, and the podcast is related to the business? Is that most of the case?
Yeah. So they use the podcast basically to market their business, similar to what you do.
Yeah, that's 100% what I do. And let me tell you that just this year, after all these years, I finally, it's doing that. It's bringing me leads, and it's bringing me money. But it's not easy to monetize, and because it's not self-evident. It's not like you can get, as you know, and probably everybody listening, like, to make serious money off of endorsements or advertisements, you have to have, I'm guessing, hundreds of thousands of downloads
lots of
a month.
listeners. Yeah.
I had a sponsor, my first sponsor last summer, and it was like $250. I'm like, that doesn't even cover the cost of editing it. So that's,
But that's why I always say, like, promote your own services, use it for your own business. That's what I always say to my clients. Is like, that's what you have to do, or else, these sponsors, they might be these big companies, but they don't pay a ton per person,
don't. They do not. It's not worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it is worth it. You just plug because your topic, your podcast content is somehow connected to what you do. So it's only logical that you put in a little, hey, and if this was interesting to you, you might be interested in this program or this coaching program or this service or this product. There's a link in the show notes, and that's it. That's great.
Exactly.
But if you're connecting to your audience, they will click.
Yes, 100%. So before we press record, you told me that podcasting is really an introvert's dream.
Yes.
Tell me more.
Oh my gosh. Haley, the real question is, how does an extrovert do this? I'm just kidding you. No. Anybody who thinks that, that they're a little bit too introverted, and by that the definition that we're using is that you get energy from talking to other people versus getting drained by talking to other people. And I will say, one day a couple weeks ago, I had 3 interviews like this for my podcast in one afternoon, and I was drained, but it was fun. Just because something makes you tired doesn't mean it's not fun. But we're so good at planning, and we're so good at not talking too much. That's what people want. They don't want lots of blah blah blah. They want the meat, and we're good at that, and we're good at organizing our content. That's another thing that helps it stick if it's organized, and it's and you can make, and we're also, I don't know if we're more creative, but definitely more analytical. But if you put up some creativity in that, it's going to be more interesting. Especially if you do solo you're just talking to yourself. You don't even have to have the camera on.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. You don't. I mean, I know a lot of people get nervous when they're in front of the camera, so that's definitely an option.
Turn the camera off.
Yeah.
And even with interviews, I think it's helpful. I use the video, but I record the video. But I don't use it, but I think it would be weird to be talking to you and not see you if I could. But you get to control. If you're interviewing people, it's your questions.
Yes.
That's an introvert's strength.
Yeah. What advice do you have because you're also, clearly a guest on this podcast, but you're a guest on other podcasts as well. What advice do you have for introverts who are being interviewed? Like they want to be a guest on podcasts.
Well, okay. That is trickier for us introverts because, what are they going to ask you? So it depends on how hardcore nervous you are. You can, but here's the ticket, Haley. You know what? As you know, I didn't do this for your podcast, but a lot of times people send me questions. I, Laura, never use them. But if you, say, hey, Laura, I want to be on your podcast, and here are 5 questions I would like for you to ask me. I bet if I asked you the first one, you would warm up, and then it wouldn't matter what else I ask you. It's really in your head. So think about what are the questions, and even if you don't prepare the 5 questions, although I think that is a very good practice, whether you turn them in or not. The topics, they're not going to ask, like you asked me, what's the square root of 5,000? I don't know. You asked me how to
makes me very sweaty, so I try to avoid those questions.
If you ask me, how do you change your tire, Laura? I don't know. You're not going to ask me that. So what they're going to ask you these topics, and that that's your domain. So you have more control than you realize then.
Yeah. I'm helping a client launch a podcast, and she wants to interview people for 3 episodes out of the month. She's doing 1 a week.
Okay.
And she was like, how do I know what to ask them? And I was like, well, you could do research. You could ask them what they want to be asked.
Yes.
She's like, is that annoying though? And I was like,
no,
it's your podcast. You get to ask whatever you want to ask them in the application process. If they want to be a guest, they can,
yes,
answer the longest application if they really want it,
Yes. And let me tell you, no matter what topic, there are thousands of people who want to be on your podcast.
Yes.
So that is not an issue. They have to jump through your hoops when they're on your podcast.
Exactly.
That's the way it works. Yes.
Yeah. So I love that tip of just, it's yours. Do it how you want. Video, no video. Prepare all the questions, use ChatGPT to come up with talking points.
Yes.
Those, I think, are all great ways to, approach podcasting.
Right. And people don't want like this perfectly polished, well, the history of communication is blah, 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 blah. No, they want authentic. That's what people like about my podcast. I think that's what I like about James Altucher, that, he's quirky. He's not as polished as other people. We like that.
Yeah, I like that too in the podcast I listen to. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have certain pet peeves, and I'm going to ask you about some of your pet peeves as a podcast listener, but, mine are kind of like if there's too much side conversation, but I also do want to know, like, what the host is up to, beyond just social media. So, I think that's really important to know is like, it doesn't have to be polished.
Right. Well, Haley, I can tell you my pet peeve on podcasts right off the bat. And
Yeah.
it's the problem that I'm sure this doesn't happen to your clients, but to other people's clients, when they play this same segment twice, like it would be like you answer a question and then that it just somehow they replay. I don't know how that happens, but I've heard it in several podcasts that they replay this same exact segment. It's like Groundhog Day or something. Like, we just heard that again. Like, but I understand. When you're putting out a podcast, it's a grind. It's a lot going on, and too much side conversations. Mm-hmm. But you said sometimes they can be interesting too.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I definitely, when the production is not good and that they're repeating a segment, I just find that off-putting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
That would. Yeah. I don't love that either.
Yeah, and these are not ma and pa podcasts I'm talking about. So I don't know. They need you. They need you, Haley.
They need me.
They do.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So, marketing.
Yes.
You put out 3 episodes a week.
Yes.
You have like over 400 episodes. What do you do to promote the episodes?
Well, SEO. I use SEO. If you search executive presence, I own that space.
Yay, I love that. Yes. I love that.
I was leadership. That's the thing about niching down and really getting to the idiosyncrasies of your people. I started off in 2009 like this general communication coach, and then which wasn't really a thing at the time, and then it was for introverts. And then it was for high-performing introverts. And then even last year was like, I'm going to own the space of executive presence. And, I put leadership. This is a leadership skill, for heaven's sakes. That's really what I'm dealing with. But the leadership SEO is very competitive. And there's lots of competitors. Whereas in executive presence space is not as much. So if somebody searches for executive presence, they're going to find me. So SEO is important. I do not have like a huge social media following. I don't enjoy it. I have LinkedIn is my, best channel. Yeah. I have a little over 5,000 followers, but I put it on LinkedIn and Instagram and my newsletter audience. But I think it's the fact that I'm also marketing it personally to my coaching clients. Like, if you're a new coaching client, first of all, probably you came from the podcast, but it is possible that you were referred. I have some clients that were referred by somebody else, and they don't know that I even have a podcast. So if they like me, if you like me, you'll like my podcast. If you like my podcast, you'll like me. But I think the SEO has been probably most helpful in getting those numbers up. Also, the retention rate.
Yeah.
My retention rate for those short episodes is very high. It's over 80%. And I think that has helped to to please the algorithm gods.
They love it. They love it.
Yeah. So that's why I think shorter episodes are better, because your retention rate goes up.
I agree.
Then the algorithms are more pleased.
Yeah. And the the length of the episodes, I think, also depends on the audience too.
Yes.
So since you know your audience and you own the executive presence space and know that's what they're looking for, they're busy.
Yeah, they are busy.
Like, they don't have time to listen to. And if they want an hour-long deep dive, like,
They'll listen to somebody else.
Right. But if they want those quick, they can listen and immediately take action episodes, which is what your audience is loving.
Right.
That's what's right for them. So I always go back to, like, knowing your audience, which I love how much you've talked about that, because it is at the core of podcasting. 100%.
Oh, I know, because as a moderately successful podcaster, people are always asking me, should I start a podcast? And I'm like, well, a podcast is a tool to communicate with a group of people, but it's not just, if it were just, what are Laura's thoughts today? Like, nobody cares. And in fact, my podcast used to be called Speak Up with Laura Camacho. Nobody knows who Laura Camacho is. All these thousands of people who download it, they just want help with their leadership communication, their executive presence. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for, Laura Camacho, how much I would like to know what she has to say today. No, it's really, you have to see your podcast as a service to others. It is not, it's not to make you some kind of star, even though that may be a side effect, but that's not the purpose of it.
Exactly. Yeah. I really enjoy how you explain things. I'm loving it.
Oh, good. Well, because I'm like the person who's showing why people need you, because they do. These things that there's so much of podcasting, I would have never found out by myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't have time. I have to work for a living. So
right.
It's intuitive that, and if it's important, you should invest in it.
Yeah. I started podcasting around the same time as you, 2018, and it's changed so much since then. Video podcasts used to not be around.
Right.
And
I know.
Then with the rise of video, now video clips are everything. And now I help people with, like, short limited series. That's really fun to do.
Yes,
but those never would have existed back in 2018. Like you're saying, it is just an evolution. And who knows what's going to come next? I mean,
know.
We can all make predictions, but short clips and video is really, like, the king right now. And so that's, I always say do what's working when it works, right?
Yes,
so,
that's
like you said, right? Like
strategy.
it just like changes as you go. So yeah, it's hard to stay on top of things if you're not in the podcast space 24/7.
Right. Exactly. It's not hard. It's impossible. Like, it's just not possible.
Exactly. Laura, I have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Bring them on.
Okay. What is the first podcast you ever listened to?
It was James Altucher. That was how I learned about podcasting, was from him. And I don't know who else I listened to back in the day, but he was an early adopter, and he's very quirky, and I really like that.
Okay, I'm going to put his link in the show notes so people can go listen to him. That's so fun.
Yeah.
What's your podcast streaming platform of choice? Is it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube? Where do you listen?
I listen on iTunes.
Yeah.
I'm not, because I'm in the car, I'm not watching them on YouTube.
Yeah, no. What is your best advice for podcasters? Like, what advice do you want to leave them with?
Well, I have to say two things. First of all, is invest and know your audience. It's like, it can be so good, but it is not possible for you to figure out everything you need to know and run a business. Now, if you're just doing podcasting and you're independently wealthy, go for it. Just go have fun.
What point did you decide investing was the right option?
Well, last year, after just dissing this other option that would have been, brick and mortar, like you have to find people to actually be there and all of that, I said to myself, okay, it was early February 2024. I'm going to invest. I'm going to give it a year. And if it is not somehow doing something for me, like bringing me clients, bringing me money, then I'm going to just stop it. I'm just going to quit it. Because even though it's fun and it's so cool when people say, oh, I love your podcast. I mean, that is intoxicating. But at the end of the day, we have lots of things to do. Last year, February 2nd or 8th, I was like, I'm going to go as hard as I can for this year. I'm going to do what the experts tell me and see what happens. And my downloads went up 8 times.
Wow.
But that's still not money in the bank, right? But then starting in October of last year is when I started really just pushing this premium coaching package. And lo and behold, people signed up for it. So, that was within the year, so I'm a slow learner and I'm busy, like maybe some of you are. So it's not, I don't think it's a quick turnaround thing necessarily.
Yeah. No, definitely. It is a long game, but I like that. Commit to it for a year, see what it brings, reevaluate,
Right. But I don't think you can really give it less than a year.
No, definitely not. It's a long game, right? There's just like marketing, just like social media. It's all like you can't post once and expect to get a client.
Right,
so
exactly.
It's the same with podcasting. So
yeah.
Thanks for walking us through that journey. I just have one last question for you.
Sure.
What is the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself through podcasting?
Oh my gosh, I'm more creative than I thought I was. Like, I don't think, I studied business and Spanish and BA. Like, I don't think of myself as like an artist or, some kind of creative genius, but by golly, to get 400 and I just recorded 420, like, and to talk about the same topic and keep it fresh and keep it interesting, that requires creativity. And it's so rewarding, but it's also hard. But yeah, I have learned that I am more of a creative than I thought. And that's cool.
That is really cool. Thank you so much for joining us, Laura. Where can the audience connect with you?
Okay, so thank you, Haley. This has been so much fun. Usually I'm the one asking the questions, so I am super enjoying being asked. That's lovely. And talking to a podcast pro is an honor. And my website is speakupwithlaura.com. And my podcast is there. My coaching program is there. All kinds of stuff is there. Or you may, if you're in corporate, you may want to connect with me on LinkedIn. Laura Camacho, PhD would be the easiest way to find me. But I look forward to connecting. And please, any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Great. I will put all of those links in the show notes. I've learned a lot from you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Everybody go out and make your podcast better.
Thank you so much for joining me in the Podcast Cafe. I hope you're leaving with fresh ideas and inspiration to take your podcast to the next level. Remember, podcasting is a journey and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here to help you every step of the way. Let's connect. Be sure you follow me on Instagram at Espresso Podcast Production or visit espressopodcastproduction.com for more tips, resources, and behind-the-scenes insights. I'd love to hear about your podcasting journey. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling extra generous, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more podcasters just like you find the show. Until next time, grab your coffee, keep creating, and I'll see you back here in the Podcast Cafe.